Okay, I have a question for those of you that might be able to answer this. It's in regards to the churches that the Apostle Paul was sent to. I know that there were some Hebrew upright ones, Yasharel, in some of those congregations, but for the most part, he was sent to the Gentiles, meaning people of Japhet and perhaps even people of Ham. Now, what I want to know is, I'm a little confused. Like, for example, okay, he was sent to the church of Ephesus, right? The Ephesians, they worshipped Diana, Wonder Woman. They were idolaters, basically. Kind of like what you got going on here in America. Some people are big fans of DC, Marvel comic, and all that bullshit. Anyways, so it's, different times, same bullshit repeats itself. You figure things would have changed by now. I guess not. Anyways, so Paul was sent to the Ephesians, right, to preach to the people there. And yeah, it says that some of them were raised up to be seated in heavenly places with the anointed Savior. He's talking about souls here, not powers and principalities, okay? Spiritual rulers in the supernatural sphere in heavenly places. Now, he's not talking about them. He's talking about souls, humans. But when you read the book of Revelation, you have the church of Ephesus. One of the angels there, supposedly, someone said it's the Archangel Michael that was overseeing that congregation. And I'm guessing probably another supernatural entity that I just described. Ephesus means daughter of Zeus, okay? And that's a Gentile church. Daughter of Zeus, probably referring to Diana, like I said, Wonder Woman. So probably you got a couple of overseeing entities that are protecting that church. And yeah, so maybe perhaps the Savior did show some courtesy and leniency towards the Ephesians, right? Some of these archons, that's where an archangel is, archon. Maybe some of the heroes from Mount Olympus. Could be a possibility. But here's the thing. Wouldn't that be somewhat of an injustice as far as having an uneven balance? Like, I understand that the Gentiles need grace, right? Because they're not as righteous. They're not goody two-shoes like some of us. So that's where you need grace, when you have an uneven balance, I assume. Because otherwise, if you have to go by the book, the old written code, perhaps it wouldn't favor them. You see what I'm saying? But think about it. These archons, these Mount Olympians, a lot of them have been ruling for a long time. And for them to be partakers with us of the same inheritance and stuff like that, wouldn't that be unfair, unjust? Wouldn't that the Most High be kind of having an unjust, uneven balance? You see what I'm saying? Or even the Savior, like, okay, so it's just, you just forget and move on. But we have to go through all that, and what about them now? They're just gonna, okay, so there's no purpose of nothing. Everything was for naught. The suffering was for nothing, right? So our Savior is not a just one, right? That's basically what it's saying there. Then, if you look at it from my perspective, so something ain't right. What I'm getting at is this: did somebody mess with the scriptures? Clearly, the scriptures have been distorted. That these light bearers mess with the scriptures on purpose to insert themselves there, to either try to include themselves and try to, be shown favor, or did Savior agree to all this? You see what I'm saying? Because if you were to pull out the balance, and try to see where things stand, it will be against the Gentiles, all right? And, time of the Gentiles is coming to an end. So how do they make things right? You see what I'm saying? So it's a little bit more complicated. Like, you just show grace, forgive them, and that's it. But at the same time, who would want to be around an unjust Savior and not just Mashiach, or individuals like the Gentiles that, they just don't know how to do what's right and stuff like that. So it's hard. Either you make things right and reconcile your people with you, or you reconcile your friends and you leave your people at odds with you. So there's where you gotta the heads, the overseers, the saviors. I think it's got to make a choice there. I believe. Like, what do? Either you draw close to your people, or some of your people, or you're gonna draw close to your former enemies or enemies. So I don't know. It's like a dilemma, predicament, and they put themselves in that situation. Some say that no, the Apostle Paul was sent to Hebrew Israelites that were considered Gentiles. This, that, and the other. Not really. The 12 apostles were sent to the 12 tribes, the lost sheep, not Paul. Paul was sent to a couple of Gentiles, perhaps. But what I want to know is, where do you leave these powers, principalities, right? These great heroes, these archons that oversee some of the churches. I mean, I don't even know how much you could trust the scriptures, especially since it has, the 6:6 and all that's missing is 1:6. So clearly there's an agenda behind it. So I really can't trust it. So that's why I spend most of my time reading the Nag Hammadi scriptures, because, yeah, man, it's just, I understand where Paul's coming from and stuff, everything's encoded in there. But at the same time, it's oh, man, come on, are you serious? Are you serious? If you know what I know, it's kind of difficult to just accept all this, and kind of difficult for me if I were to stand before the Savior. I would have a lot of questions, and I'm sure himself will understand where I'm coming from. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just, like I said, I'm just doing, my job is just to let you know and expose certain things that are not right, and go about my business, and hopefully this whole thing could get sorted out, and hopefully, somebody gives me an answer, because, I don't get it. I really don't get it. And like I said, there's a lot of inconsistencies, and maybe they're realizing that they fudged up, So I don't know. I really don't know. Anyways, that's all I wanted to share with you. So feel free to leave a comment, okay, in the comment section. I want to see what you think. What are your opinions on all this, all right? Or is it okay for these Gentiles to partake with us in salvation, that type of stuff? From a merciful and gracious standpoint, I understand it. But at the same time, what about the balance? That leaves an uneven balance and stuff like that, and somewhat of an injustice. And can these beings change? And were the scriptures distorted? Were they behind it? These same Gentiles, right? Including themselves in there just so they could, escape having to face the consequences and stuff like that. So I don't know. I really don't know. A little confused. And I have a few questions in regards to that, because anyone with good reasoning skills in their mind will tell the Savior, "Hey, man, well, what's up right here, man? You're contradicting your word now here. This whole thing is just, getting more complex." I'm not saying that they can't be forgiven, let bygones be bygones, but at the same time, somebody like me would be like, "Man, well, we went through all that BS, and you're just gonna let them keep going with it?" Nah, man, that's not even right. You gotta figure out this mess and sort it out. Some of us, hardcore followers, look, man, it's either gonna be your people Yasharel or your friends the Gentiles. So if it's both, then well, how do you make things right and stuff like that? So I don't know. It's just tricky and it's complicated, but I'll let them sort it out. My business is just to throw it out there and see what response I get in return. Anyways, I'm out. Peace.